So now we are going to go into our next artist and speaker. And her name is Janice Rice, and Carly Lincoln, our roving reporter, is going to be taking care of this session here with Janice Rice. Carly, you there? Are you there?
I am there. Oh, there. I'm here.
There you are.
Hi, guys. Hello and welcome everybody to day 2. I'm here at Ma Wankanchunk. It is a bit windy, so please pardon some background noise. I've kind of found a corner to hunker down in while I introduce our next presenter. So please bear with me. I know you can't see me yet, but you will later. So I'm so excited that I get to introduce Janice Rice, or as she goes by in the Ho-Chunk Nation, Kinu Kijawinga. She is a Ho-Chunk tribal member that grew up in rural Toma, and she hails from a family of fluent speakers, dancers, and singers. And all of her family have taught her the culture and life ways of the Ho-Chunk people. She is in a First Listeners Language program for the Ho-Chunk Nation's Language Division. She also serves as a clan mother for the Ho-Chunk Nation within our Social Services Department, a beautiful cause that is an incredible resource for parents. And she's also an advisor for the Great Lakes Indian Culture Keepers. She has also been a lecturer for UW-Madison's courses on tribal libraries, archives, and museums. And Janice is also very active in the Ho-Chunk history research, art, and museum projects that take place. She is also an active participant with Indian Native language revitalizations and contemporary Native issues. For any of you that have not had the opportunity to meet Janice Rice, she is a wealth of knowledge. She is a well to drink from when it comes to the Ho-Chunk Nation, and I am so proud of her. I can't say enough praise for her because she has certainly helped me as a Ho-Chunk woman, as she is my family member. She has taught me so much, and I've learned some of the Ho-Chunk language alongside her. So I'm so grateful that she has some time today to impart some more information to everybody. So without further ado, please welcome Janice Rice.
Good morning, everyone. Hijan kishana hini karagiwi. Hinukijai wahajate. Hunchigi karaj hijan waonakshana. Pinagigi for being with us today. I'm a member of the Bear Clan, and I enjoy being with you today. I just wanted to let you know that I've really enjoyed being a part of this event, and I was there yesterday enjoying the scenery and the artists and all the beautiful work that they've done. So I hope you have a chance to get out there and enjoy what we have to share. The next thing I'd like to talk with you about is just some of the values that we have as Ho-Chunk people. My interest came from my parents and my grandparents, as Carly has indicated. And I really enjoyed that life of being able to walk in two worlds. I was part of the Ho-Chunk world, and it was my grandmother and my mother and my older sister who helped me migrate into my world of Ho-Chunk life and the non-native life. I already introduced you in my Ho-Chunk language, but I also wanted to acknowledge the resiliency and teachings of our elders that have walked before us. There's so many of them, and I don't have time to name each one today, but I wanted to just acknowledge them because without their strength, their wisdom, their voices, their prayers, and the commitment that they've made to family and preservation of our culture, we wouldn't be here today. So I really am honored that we had our ancestors that did so many things for us. And then we have been the recipients of those blessings. Today we'll be at Ma Wankanchunk, and it was beautiful to be there yesterday, and I'm sure it's just as beautiful today. And I hope that you can come out there and enjoy the blessings. Ma Wankanchunk in Ho-Chunk language means sacred land or holy land. And just north of here is Devil's Lake State Park. And we call that De Wankanchunk. And so somehow the non-natives misconstrued our language, and instead of calling it Spirit Lake or Sacred Lake, it's been called Devil's Lake. So just a little language lesson for you there. Throughout the day, I hope to share some Ho-Chunk words with you during the presentation, and hope you'll bear with me as I use some of the words throughout the day. It's just been really enjoyable to be on the property and to see the beauty of the area, the birds, and all of the nature that's out there. As I mentioned, a lot of what I'm going to talk about deals with the values and the voices of our Ho-Chunk people. So I'd like to just mention that our elders that walked before us are the ones who gave us many of our teachings. So whenever you're out by the artists in our community, you probably will have a chance to talk with them about some of the ways that their ancestors have shared the culture with them. And I've been fortunate to have family that shared stories with me, and many good relationships and that were built around what they taught me. One of the first things I was taught as a young child was to respect all living things. So when I am out walking in my neighborhood and in the prairie, I always take the time to appreciate what's around me. At sunrise, I'm out there, and sometimes there's a little fog landing over the prairie. So it's really a beautiful place to be and to share the culture of prayer with the wildlife that's there. The birds are singing, and it's just a really beautiful time to be out there enjoying the blessings of creation. And then there's also the wildlife that are there. I was always taught to appreciate them, to honor them, and sometimes I even talk with them. I'll say good morning as I'm walking. So it's a nice place to be. So I hope that you continue in your daily living to get out there and enjoy the blessings that are around you. Today, I'm going to share a little bit of background on our Ho-Chunk culture and where we come from, and talk with you a little bit about that history and blend it in with the values of my ancestors. So what I'd like to do next is just talk with you about the brief history of our people, ever so slightly, so you can learn a little bit about our territory. We were told that our people have originated at Mogashooch, which is the Red Banks. And it's really a beautiful area up near Green Bay, and it runs along the rivers, the Fox, and coming down to the Wisconsin and that whole territory, which eventually joins up with Rock River, all the way down to joining up with the Mississippi River. Water has always been very important to us. And so we get refreshment from our water. We enjoy it. Our elders have always brought us around the water and asked us to be respectful, to say our prayers, and to remember that water is sacred. Nina wakan chunk she'aide. That means the water is sacred, we are told. Some of the stories that I've learned come from just being around the fire, being at our campsites, and being places where we can join with family. And those of you who are non-native in your communities, maybe sometimes you've gone out and you've been in a circle camping with your family, and it's a good time to tell stories and share your own values with your children. And that's what my ancestors did. They shared stories and talked about our ways, and it was a good place to get centered and enjoy life and learn the teachings and learn about our own history. Many years ago, back in the 1700s, Humboldt met Jonathan Carver. He was an explorer who encountered the Ho-Chunk people. And at that time, Humboldt was a leader near Lake Winnebago. She lived on Doty Island, and the family had some palisades that were there. And when Jonathan Carver arrived, he approached her and visited with her and gained passage down from the Fox River to the Wisconsin. So there were many explorers during that time period who were in this region learning about the different tribes in the region. And this is where Jonathan Carver met Hambaguinga. During that time period, shortly after she had met a French soldier, and his name was, I'm trying to think of his name off the top of my head, Sabuwa de Carey. And she married him and they had several children. And eventually the soldier went back to Canada, to Quebec, and he took the children with him, but the young boys got lonesome and they came home. He eventually joined the military service out there and was killed in action. And the daughter never came back, but the young men still stayed there. And the sons, there were two sons, Spoondikora or Chugiga Wanageda was one of them. And he was one of the leaders that was here during the time that the treaties were first being negotiated. And so during the Great Lakes period of negotiations, the tribes around here met down at Rock River, where the Rock River meets the Mississippi, which was Rock Island, Illinois. And so he was involved in the treaties at that time, the Treaty of Peace. There was another brother named Gray-Headed Decorah, and he had two sons, One-Eyed Decorah and Wakan Decorah. One-Eyed Decorah was involved in the battles as well, and he also had a village which was on the Black River. And Wakan Decorah had his village just north of Prairie du Chien. So it was really a enjoyable and threatening time, balancing two things together: the joy of life with the family, but also negotiating with different entities that came forward. As I mentioned, the tribes were being met by encroachment of the settlers, the miners, and the soldiers, all moving westward through the Great Lakes region. So at one point, Wisconsin was even a part of Michigan Territory and Illinois Territory. But eventually, as you know, we gained statehood. The removals happened, and that orange area shows you what our ceded territory was. As I mentioned, coming down from Mogashooch up by Green Bay, Lake Winnebago, and coming all the way down into northern Illinois. So those treaties were negotiated, and Mawakanchunk is right in the center there. There were many leaders who negotiated with the people, and they were also bilingual and sometimes even multilingual. Many of the agents and interpreters were married to Ho-Chunk women, and they had children. So you can see some of the interpreters in the back, Alex Payer and Marshall St. Cyr, their mothers were Ho-Chunk. So back then, French was the language of trade, along with different languages. And so the multilingualism was really important. So these are just a few of the leaders of that time. Since we're at Mawakanchunk, I thought I would just mention a few names of the people who were settled in this area. During that removal period, many people kept coming back. Our Ho-Chunk people kept returning to our homelands. Even though the treaties were negotiated, there was one treaty which we contested. And so many of the relatives kept coming back because it was home. we wanted to come back to where we're from. So I have a photo of Yellow Thunder here, but there was Ahucho, which is Blue Wing, and many other leaders who kept returning back so that there always was a homeland and a place to go for relatives who were returning back to Wisconsin. It brings me back again to those thoughts of why we're here. They wanted to return and come back to the homelands. All the creatures that are here, all the things that we're familiar with, they would come back to be with their relatives and enjoy the scenery, enjoy our homelands. I'm going to talk with you a little bit now about some stories, since I talked about sharing values with you and some of the voices of our people. One of the stories that I remember growing up involves my grandmother. It was the first time that I had learned about other relatives. We were isolated and kept really close as little children, close to the family. And one of the things that my family did was to work at Cherryland back in the 1950s. And that was a wonderful time. I really enjoyed smelling the fragrance of the cherries in Door County. And then there were campsites where and cabins where we lived for those few short weeks when my parents and grandparents and older siblings picked cherries for a living. That's the time where I learned who my relatives are. My extended family, the older girls would take care of us younger ones. And we learned to talk with them, just play with the children and enjoy life. One of the things that my grandmother did on a day when she wasn't picking cherries in the orchard, she took my younger sister and me on a walk. So we walked through the orchard, and one of the things that she did was to take a shawl with her. As we were walking, we would take turns. We were so little. I was 4 and my little sister was 3. My grandmother would put us on her back and put a sling over the back, and we would be in her sling. And we really enjoyed that time. My grandmother would talk and tell us stories about creation and the gifts of the Creator. And she always told us to be careful where we are, where we walk, be cautious, but also to enjoy the blessings of creation and just do the best we can to take care of one another. The other values that were shared with us at that time were to travel and to make food, gather the herbs and go to the gardens, gather those, save up for winter, and then to gather wild rice and to cook for the families. So those were important times for us. We really enjoyed those gifts of creation and sharing with the family. It was also a time to learn about the values of Ho-Chunk living. One of the things we say is that to love one another is called Wo-Ki-Chade. And when they tell us as elders, they say Wo-Ki-Chade wire. They're telling all of us to love one another. The other thing is Ahi-Kiru-Di wire. That means take another one by the hand and help each other along. So you might often hear that when you come to some of our events. The elders are still reminding us to take care of one another. The other thing is Nik Jangaro Wagigunswire. It means teach the children. So that's what we try to do in life, take care of the children. So many times it's the grandparents who are doing the teaching because the parents are out working and either gathering or on a hunt, or maybe they have everyday living today where they're out in the work world. The grandparents are still teaching the children. The other thing they teach us is to go out there and to actually work in the fields, get out there and actually take care of what's out there in the land. Sometimes we're there planting the corn. Sometimes we're there weeding and watering. Other times we're back there just to check on the blessings and to say a prayer there so that we'll have a good harvest this year. So those are the things that our grandparents taught us so that we could continue on life and to enjoy the blessings of creation. So we would always have something for the future, for now, and for next winter when the winter gets harsh. And then back once again to enjoying the early rising. One of the things that I was taught by my mother and my grandmother is to rise early in the morning. The first thing in the morning, get up and say your prayers. Face the east. I was told by many of our elders that they listened to their grandmothers when they awoken, or when they would awaken in the morning, they would hear their grandmothers saying their prayers and facing the rising sun. And when they were on a journey, that was a special time for the grandmothers and the mothers to say their prayers, and the fathers and the grandfathers all early in the morning to greet the day. And then I learned also that the wildlife is also greeting the day. So if you're out walking on the prairie, you'll hear them singing and greeting the day. And then once the sun rises, they start their day and they begin hunting and feeding their families. I'm going to tell you a few little stories about my grandparents and my grandfather. In our Ho-Chunk language, we call our grandfather Choka. And that's my Choka on the right. On the left is my Choka Khede, my great-grandfather. And through them, I learned a lot about my Bear Clan ways. And I also learned a lot about respect, love, and sharing, and also some of the duties that they had. So I was really very happy when my grandfather was with us. He always had stories to share, and mainly he spoke in Ho-Chunk. He hardly ever spoke a word of English to us. And mainly I would overhear him talking to my parents, my grandmother, and my older sister. So they were all fluent in Ho-Chunk. So I gained a lot of my Ho-Chunk knowledge from them. One of the things that Choka did when he was young is he danced out west. He grew up in Winnebago, Nebraska, and he had a lot of relatives out there on that reservation. And so he enjoyed life. Eventually, he became a singer as he grew on in life and became an elder. He was a singer. And I really enjoyed listening to him. He always sang such beautiful songs. He had a beautiful voice and a soft and kind heart. When he lived with us as teenagers, I could hear him singing in his bedroom in the morning, bright and early. That's how he would start his day. He would sing songs. And I could feel so happy just from listening to his singing coming from the bedroom. The other thing he did was to teach songs to the family. And so in the evenings, Jaji, he would talk to my father, and we called our father Jaji. And it's really amazing when I think back on it, because when we were little children, we called our father Daddy. And it was around the drum that my older sister said, "You are Ho-Chunk children. We are Ho-Chunks. Call your father Jaji." So from that time on, as little children, we called our father Jaji. When we had company, Choka would bring out the drum. Sometimes Jaji would bring out the drum. When company was here after dinner, all of us would get out and dance. We would have so many good times sharing with the young children that were our age, our Wajoki, our relatives. And we had a chance to share songs and good feelings with one another. And I learned a lot during that time about who our relatives are and how to treat them. And so it was always enjoyable because we always ate together, but after dinner was the fun time for us. And later on in life, we got to the dance arena, and that was really enjoyable. And one of the things that my mother and my grandmother and my older sister always taught us is that our veterans are at the center. The drum is at the center, and we're there because of the veterans. So that's why you see the young ladies in the lower left photo standing in the back, dancing. That's what we always did. We support our men relatives, our uncles, our degas, our fathers, our brothers, our chokas. That's how we show our support. We're there with them when they're out in the dance arena. So it's an enjoyable time for me. That's where I learned about Bear Clan and dance traditions. So it's just been an enjoyable time for me just to even go back down memory lane and to enjoy these times once again, just by looking at these photos. As I mentioned, veterans are at the center. We just recently finished our Memorial Day powwow where the flags are raised. We remember all our veterans, those who were killed in action. And in fact, the powwow grounds, the Andrew Blackhawk lands out there, honors our Korean veteran. And so it's a special time for us to get out there in the arena and remember the soldiers that are still in action and those who have gone on before us and made the ultimate sacrifice. So Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud died in action in Korea. And so many of us have relatives who have served our country, and it's an honor to be a part of the community that remembers our veterans. So some people are not even aware that our relatives honor our veterans in that way. And it's an honor to be a part of that culture and to remember and to honor our veterans. As I mentioned, it's our elders who teach us what's valuable, what is meaningful to us. It's our role as elders to share with the young people. So that's what they attempt to do. So some days you might hear an elder speaking to the young ones, telling them what they're supposed to do. And then it's also important to lead them so that they will follow. So it's just an enjoyable time to see people in action, sharing the culture and remembering the traditions and stories of our families. In that previous photo, you saw a few of our children. Birth order is really important in our families. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the names that we have for the birth order of our children. And once you receive this name, it stays with you for a lifetime. The firstborn son is called Kunu. The secondborn son is Hena. The thirdborn son is Haga. And for the young girls, the firstborn girl is Hinu. The secondborn daughter is Wiha. And the thirdborn daughter is Haksiga. So it's really important to remember that. And many of us use these names when we're speaking to our children. So when you go to a powwow, be sure and listen, or maybe our cultural events. If you're there, you might hear someone call out a name. So if you hear someone say, Hinu, take note. You will see every Hinu turn around to look. One of the other teachings of our elders is always to provide refreshment for your guests. Water is sacred, water is life. One of the first things my grandmother taught me is to bring water to the elders. Bring them a cup of water, refresh them, and you'll hear a story from them. The other thing is when a guest comes to your house to visit, bring them all kinds of refreshment. Share your food with them. Put on something on the stove or the fireplace. Offer them something to eat. Share good stories with them. Share lots of good memories. So when they leave your home, they will leave feeling honored, refreshed, and ready to face the day, and they can make their journey to wherever they're going in the next few hours. The other thing that we were taught is to work together as teams. When you're doing anything as a project, it's important to work together as a family, an extended family. So often you will have relatives who work the process together. And so when it's time to do the harvest, there's many relatives working together. Those are photos from the 1930s and 40s. But today, you will still find our young people helping their family when it's time to harvest the corn. Because we're at Mawakanchunk this weekend, I wanted to touch base a little bit about Highway 12. If you look at the road that you're approaching as you come into Mawakanchunk, you're traveling Highway 12 between Sauk City and Devil's Lake and Baraboo. And I just wanted to talk with you a bit about Highway 12. It's an important journey point. It used to be the main travel route when I was growing up. And in the late 40s and 50s, you could find basket stands along Highway 12. My family had a basket stand on Highway 12, which is near south of Black River Falls at Millston. And I have other relatives who had basket stands that started just north of Rocky Arbor, going on Highway 12 and continuing on to Mauston and all the way up to Millston. So Highway 12 was a main travel route, and that was a chance for the artists to show their wares. The baskets were posted at the basket stand, and then the beadwork was sold there. And then sometimes there was target practice. So if the little boys came with their parents, they would have a chance to play to do archery and learn a few things while their parents are viewing the artwork and the basket work. So it was a enjoyable time on Highway 12. So Mawakanchunk is nearby. So I hope you'll remember some of the journeys that our relatives had. Now we do have the interstate highway and you're not able to travel 12, but I still do that today. And I always have memories of traveling along Highway 12 and all the relatives who worked and lived in that area. In fact, I remember that was the first place where I learned stories and values from my grandmother. I did not know how to talk with non-native people. So when my grandmother came to the basket stand and the tourists walked over, she would have good conversations with them. And they were so talkative and had many questions. And so if I wasn't shy that day, and if a tourist asked me a question, I could speak a little bit of English in a proper way and answer their questions. But my grandmother was the main one who taught me how to be respectful to non-natives and to listen to their questions and answer them when I was spoken to. So it was an enjoyable time to be learning from other cultures as well as my own elders. I have shared with you some of the teachings of my relatives, and I hope that you will take the time to enjoy your surroundings. Take the time to get outdoors, close your eyes, listen, and learn. You'll hear the birds singing and you'll hear the sounds of nature. If you take the time today, step outside and close your eyes, listen. What do you hear? What are the colors and the smells and the fragrances in the region? What do you hear? Is it nature or is it the sound of machinery? Take in what is good and bring it with you to share with your families. Enjoy the blessings of the day. My mother always taught me to pray every day. So that's what I do as I'm walking on my pathway each day. So I hope that you'll take the time to do that and learn from your own family and learn from nature. They have a lot to teach us if only we would listen. Sometimes we're just so busy that we don't get out there to learn and listen. And so I hope that you will take the time to reflect and listen and learn as you're on your own journey today. I've enjoyed my time today, and I hope that you'll enjoy yours too. Hija Kishana Hanay na kuwi na wa inigi na kuwi. Pinagkiki. Thank you.